Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja-vihari Gopi-chana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja-vihari Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parvajakacharya Astar Sata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai Gaura Premananda All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga, glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 28, Kapila's Instructions on Devotional Service, Text 18. Kīrtanya-tīrtha-yaśasaṁ puṇya-śloka-yaśaskaram dhyāyed devam samagra-aṅgam yāvan cyavate manaḥ kīrtanya-tīrtha-yaśasaṁ puṇya-śloka-yaśaskaram dhyāyed devam samagra-aṅgam yāvan cyavate manaḥ kīrtanya-tīrtha-yaśasam puṇya-śloka-yaśaskaram dhyāyed devam samagra-aṅgam yāvan cyavate manaḥ kīrtanya-tīrtha-yaśasam puṇya-śloka-yaśaskaram, samagra-aṅgam, Vaishnavis. Kīrtanya, worth singing. Tīrtha-yaśasam, the glories of the Lord. Puṇya-śloka, of the devotees. Yaśaḥ-karam, enhancing the glory. Dhyāyed, one should meditate. Devam, upon the Lord. Samagra-aṅgam, all the limbs. Yāvat, as much as. Not. Cyavate, deviates. Manaḥ, the mind. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Translation. The glory of the Lord is always worth singing, for His glories enhance the glories of His devotees. One should therefore meditate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead and upon His devotees. One should meditate on the eternal form of the Lord until the mind becomes fixed. Purport. One has to fix his mind on the Supreme Personality of Godhead constantly. When one is accustomed to thinking of one of the innumerable forms of the Lord, Kṛṣṇa, Viṣṇu, Rāma, Nārāyaṇa, etc., he has reached the perfection of yoga. This is confirmed in the Brahma-saṁhitā. A person who has developed pure love for the Lord and whose eyes are smeared with the ointment of transcendental loving exchange always sees within the heart the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The devotees specifically especially see the Lord in the beautiful blackish form of Śyāmasundara. This is the perfection of yoga. This yoga system should be continued until the mind does not vacillate for a moment. Om Tad Viṣṇu Paramam Padam Sada Pashyanti Suryaha. The form of Viṣṇu is the highest individuality and is always visible to sages and saintly persons. The same purpose is served when a devotee worships the form of the deity in the temple. There is no difference between devotional service in the temple and meditation on the form of the Lord, since the form of the Lord is the same, whether he appears within the mind or in some concrete element. There are 8 kinds of forms recommended for the devotees to see. These forms may be made out of sand, clay, wood, or stone. They may be contemplated within the mind or made of jewels, metal, or painted colors, but all the forms are of the same value. It is not that one who meditates on the form within the mind sees differently from one who worships the form in the temple. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is absolute, and there is therefore no difference between the two. The impersonalists who desire to disregard the eternal form of the Lord imagine some round figure. They especially prefer the Omkara, which also has form. In Bhagavad Gita, it is stated that the Omkara is the letter form of the Lord. Similarly, there are statue forms and painting forms of the Lord. Another significant word in this verse is puṇya-śloka-yaśaskaram. The devotee is called puṇya-śloka. As one becomes purified by chanting the holy name of the Lord, so one can become purified simply by chanting the name of a holy devotee. The pure devotee of the Lord and the Lord himself are non-different. It is sometimes feasible to chant the name of a holy devotee. This is a very sanctified process. Lord Chaitanya was once chanting the holy names of the gopis when his students criticized him. Why are you chanting the name of the gopis? Why not Kṛṣṇa? Lord Chaitanya was irritated by the criticism, and so there was some misunderstanding between him and his students. He wanted to chastise them for desiring to instruct him on the transcendental process of chanting. The beauty of the Lord is that the devotees who are connected with him are also beautiful, are also glorified, Arjuna, Prahlad, Janaka Maharaj, Bali Maharaj, and many other devotees were not even in the renounced order, but were householders. Some of them, such as Prahlad Maharaj and Bali Maharaj, were born of demoniac families. Prahlad Maharaj's father was a demon, and Bali Maharaj was the grandson of Prahlad Maharaj. But still, they become famous because of their association with the Lord. Anyone who is eternally associated with the Lord is glorified with the Lord. The conclusion is that a perfect yogi should always be accustomed to seeing the form of the Lord. And unless the mind is fixed in that way, he should continue practicing yoga. Om Jnana Timrandasya Gananchana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So, in this verse and purport, we're learning that the devotee of the Lord, the pure devotees of the Lord especially, can be glorified just as the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself is glorified. And Kṛṣṇa likes it when his devotees are glorified or when they're glorifying him. Naham tishrami vaikunte yoginam hridayeshu va. So Narada Muni was addressed in this way by Kṛṣṇa, who told him, I'm not in Vaikuntha, I'm not in the hearts of the meditating yogis. If you really want to know where I am, I'm where my devotees are glorifying me. And Kṛṣṇa also glorifies his devotees. In the Chaitanya-tīrtha-yaśasaṁ, there are descriptions how Lord Chaitanya would glorify his devotees on occasions. Like he would be introducing his devotees to a personality, or he'd have all his devotees coming together. For example, when they met him when he returned from South India, and he began glorifying each devotee present there. Actually, Srila Prabhupada says that the word Bhagavatam, Srimad Bhagavatam, means not just the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but the glorification of the devotees of the Lord, because they're always in connection with Kṛṣṇa. Srila Prabhupada once told the BBT artists that Kṛṣṇa should not be depicted alone, should be depicted with his devotees, whether it's a cow or a peacock, or his mother and father, Yashoda and Nanda, or with his cowherd boyfriends, girlfriends. Kṛṣṇa should always be depicted along with his devotees. And as Srila Prabhupada often does in his purports, he paraphrases different verses, like this verse from Brahma-saṁhitā, Premanjana charita bhakti vilochanena santas sadaiva hridayesho vilokyanti yam Śyāmasundaram achintya gunasvarupam govindam adipurusham tamaham bhajami. So, he's saying that the devotees whose eyes are smeared with the ointment of prema, of love of God, they're always seeing the Lord in the heart, not as the four-armed super soul, but directly as Śyāmasundara, the personality of Godhead as he exists in Goloka, Vrindavan. So, in the first chapter of the first canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam, I believe it's text 16, said, who would not glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead, in this age of Kali? So this process of the glorification of the Lord, and also the glorification of the Lord's devotees, is very pleasing to Kṛṣṇa. Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Shastra Koi, Lavamatra Sadhu Sangha, Sarva Siddhi Hoy. So, the devotees of the Lord are very valuable. Yasya prasadam bhagavat prasado, yasya prasadam nagati kutopi. Especially the pure devotees who take the role of spiritual master. They are considered to be the external manifestation of the super soul, the Lord in the heart, the Chaitya Guru. And when Kṛṣṇa sees that someone is attracted to the devotees of the Lord and attracted to their association and taking up their practices, bhajana kriya, Kṛṣṇa is very pleased by that. So, sometimes, as mentioned here in this purport, even Kṛṣṇa himself, in the form of Lord Chaitanya, his incarnation, his avatar, in which he appears in the form of a devotee to give instruction to us by his example, even he was chanting the names, sometimes not the name of Kṛṣṇa, but the name of Kṛṣṇa's dear devotees. He went through different phases in his manifest lila or pastimes on this planet. For the first part of his life, he was a householder. So when he was a householder, he was supporting himself by running a school of Sanskrit language and grammar. He was a teacher, so he had students. And one day, at home, by himself, Lord Chaitanya was chanting, "Gopi, Gopi, Gopi." And one of his students happened to be walking by his house and heard him. So the student went up and said, "Oh, Nimai Pandit, why are you chanting this Gopi, Gopi, Gopi? You should be chanting the name of Kṛṣṇa. What kind of pious result do you get from chanting this Gopi, Gopi?" And it's Lord Chaitanya, he didn't like that very much, being corrected by the student. For one thing, it's considered an offense to chant Kṛṣṇa's name or the name of Kṛṣṇa's devotees for the purpose of accumulating pious credits. That's one of the offenses to the holy name, to consider it to be one of the prescribed activities of the karma kanda section of the Vedas. So he was not very pleased by this student criticizing him in that way. So then he began to chastise this arrogant student of his and began to chase him. And some of his associates saw him and said, "No, calm down." So they took him back to his place. The student went to a place where there were about 1,000 of Lord Chaitanya's many students gathered together. And he explained what happened. I was going by our teacher's house, and he was madly chanting these names of these women, and he chased after me with a stick, and the students were very upset, and saying, how could he do that? What does he think he is? He's attacking a Brahmin student, because the system was in those days that only the Brahmins went to school and got any higher education. And in his purports about that, Srila Prabhupada mentioned that in the modern system of education, everyone is given the same kind of training, the same kind of education, but actually they're seeing, even these days, they're seeing that they're starting to realize that not everyone is going to become a book-learning type of a scholar, that you have to have education for people who are going to take up different trades, different positions in society. Chaturvanya maya srishtam guna karma vibhagasha. That there are different varnas, different types of occupation, and they require different kinds of training. But that's not the main point here. It's that these students, they became very angry with their teacher, Nimai Pandit, Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya began to, when he learned about this, he began to lament a little bit to his close associates. And he said, this is stated in Chaitanya Bhagavat, the Chaitanya Charitamrita just mentions what he decided to do, but in Chaitanya Bhagavat it's mentioned, he says, he was considering himself like to be a doctor, an Ayurvedic doctor, and he said, I was making this medicine to reduce the amount of mucus in the body, but instead it's producing more mucus. In other words, his mission was to come to this material world and spread the Sankirtan movement, the glorification of the Lord and his pure devotees, and it was his activities were having the opposite effect. The students were becoming angry at him and creating offenses. So that's when he decided to take sannyas, not because he wanted to become a sannyasi, but because in the social climate of those days, people would automatically offer respectful obeisances to a sannyasi. And they were, for most people, sannyasi meant the followers of Shankara. So Lord Chaitanya, as part of his strategy for spreading the Sankirtan movement, took sannyas so he took sannyas in order that people would, like his students, wouldn't become upset and they would offer obeisances and thus not create offenses. And Srila Prabhupada explains that, because it may seem strange that, in one sense, that when this student, arrogant student, started criticizing Lord Chaitanya for not chanting the name of Kṛṣṇa, Lord Chaitanya responded by rebuking Kṛṣṇa. And we may think, well, wow, why would he do that? But it's explained that when Uddhava came to Vrindavan after Kṛṣṇa had apparently left Vrindavan, and the gopis, including Radharani, were feeling great separation, Uddhava was sent by Kṛṣṇa to deliver a message to them. And when Uddhava, on behalf of Kṛṣṇa, delivered this message, the gopis, including Radharani, began to rebuke Kṛṣṇa. They were saying things like, oh, yeah, he's in the big city now, and he's enjoying the association of all these sophisticated women, but he's really a rascal. He cut off the nose and ears of Suparnika just to please his wife, Sita. There was this nice king, Bali Maharaj, who was trying to give him some charity, and Kṛṣṇa cheated him and took all of his possessions and arrested him and put him down in prison in Sutala planet. He's a rascal. And Kṛṣṇa sometimes says, as like in the Nectar Devotion, and other places, Kṛṣṇa says he actually appreciates that. He appreciates the chastisement of the gopis as much as, or even greater than, when he is glorified in a mood of awe and reverence. So, after explaining this pastime here in this purport, Srila Prabhupada again makes the point that yes, sometimes, just as Lord Chaitanya chanted Gopi, Gopi, chanted the glories of the devotees of the Lord, we also do that when we glorify personalities like Prahlad Maharaj or Bali Maharaj, who I just mentioned, or any of these other devotees of the Lord who are connected with him through his transcendental pastimes. So, and of course, there are pure devotees that we glorify and offer special worship to, like Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. We have ceremonies on their appearance days and disappearance days. So Kṛṣṇa is very pleased when his devotees are glorified. And even among ourselves, Kṛṣṇa is pleased when we appreciate the service and qualities of different devotees of our association. Sometimes we do that as well. So I'll read the verse again and stop here. The verse, "The glory of the Lord is always worth singing, for his glories enhance the glories of his devotees. One should therefore meditate upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead and upon his devotees. One should meditate on the eternal form of the Lord until the mind becomes fixed." So, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada was mentioning, I just add this one point, that the form of the Lord may be of metal or paint or a mental form. And in these days, it could also be a digital form. Wasn't mentioned here, but now many devotees glorify the Lord, the form of the digital form of the Lord. So I'll stop there. Any questions or comments? Satchidananda Prabhu.
Thank you, Prabhu. In glorifying the Guru or the pure devotee, it appears that it's been approved by all the scriptures. But my question is that sometimes, maybe being neophyte, someone step boundaries and goes above of someone who might not have the qualities. For example, we have seen sometimes many, let's say the present gurus now in ISKCON, and then we have Prabhupada, and then someone wants to probably equally. And then also I was thinking about, in the case of Prithu Maharaj, when he was going to be crowned, many of the some of professional singers, out of good heart that they have, they were glorifying him. But he kind of stopped them and said, "Don't do it yet. I haven't done anything." So your thoughts about that? First, the one that, a neophyte disciple may try to over-glorify, such as the case also in the history of ISKCON happened when, in the beginning, when some devotees were trying to over-glorify Prabhupada as a god or something.
Yes, that's right. But the principle is still there that it's worthwhile glorifying Kṛṣṇa and Krishna's devotees. Now, how they're glorified is, there may be some arrangement. And again, this is among the devotees of the Lord. They may have some arrangements among themselves how different categories of devotees are to be glorified. But they're not saying that the devotees shouldn't be glorified. They're making some arrangement how and to what extent they should be glorified, taking into account the positions of the devotees who are being glorified. And maybe they would have some consideration like, yes, if, just like, in the Daksha Yajna, there was some misunderstanding who should be respecting who. Daksha, Shiva, they were trying to balance the situation. Or like when Balaram came to the gathering of sages, exactly how they should be glorified so that no offense is created among them. So, there may be some arrangement, like some consideration like that. But like even Lord Chaitanya in this pastime from the Chaitanya-Charitamrita, he was thinking, yes, my mission is to glorify the Lord and his devotees, but he found the way he was doing it wasn't having the desired results, so he made some adjustment by taking sannyas. Everybody?
Thank you, Prabhu. You were describing that pastime of Lord Chaitanya when he was chanting the name of the gopis and how the student reacted and how Lord Chaitanya went on to take sannyas. But at that time, Lord Chaitanya's father had already passed away and his brother had already left home. So it was just Lord Chaitanya, he was kind of young and newly married, and his mother, who was elderly. Isn't that kind of an extreme thing to do? I mean, he could have, because, I mean, the people who were most affected by that was his mother and his wife. They were just, that's it. He was gone. He was this, their life and soul and their support. So have any devotees commented upon that, how to understand that? It seems like an extreme thing to do.
Well, it was, and Lord Chaitanya said that. I was in this mood and I went and crazily took sannyas. So some adjustment was made between Lord Chaitanya and his mother. He agreed to make not just roam all over the place, but make his headquarters in Jagannath Puri, which was kind of like a sister city or something. There was some connection between the population in the Navadvip area and the devotees in Orissa and Jagannath Puri. So some adjustment was made. Anything else? Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.